All right. Sun, sand, and maybe even a little real estate. Let's dive into buying property in Thailand. You guys sent in a ton of info on this, and wow, it's a lot to unpack. We've got legal stuff, locations, financing. Kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, it can definitely feel like a bit of a jungle out there.
Exactly. So, where do we even begin?
Well, we'll break it all down step by step. So by the end, you can practically feel that warm Thai breeze and picture yourself sipping a mango sticky rice, on your own little balcony overlooking the ocean.
Okay, I like where this is going. Sign me up for that balcony view. Now, first things first, the question that jumped out at me right away, can foreigners even own property in Thailand? I mean, is that even possible?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. And it's a little more complicated than just, walking in and buying a house outright. It's not quite like that.
Okay, so let's clear that up right away. What are the rules?
Basically, foreigners can't own land directly, but
Hmm.
they can own condos, buildings, or even lease land long term.
So it's not a complete no-go, which is good news, but definitely some nuances to navigate.
Exactly. It's a bit like, think of it this way. You're buying that amazing penthouse suite, right?
Yeah.
But you don't actually own the land the whole skyscraper is built on.
Okay, get that analogy. So if I wanted to build, say, a villa, that's where a lease comes in.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that be kind of risky, especially if you're thinking long term, maybe even retirement?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's where having a really good property lawyer in your corner becomes like essential. They'll help you make sure the lease terms are solid, make sure it's renewable and protect your investment.
Okay, lawyer check. So let's say we've got that legal side covered. What about the different kinds of properties you can get? Because it's not all just beachfront bungalows, right?
Right. There's a whole range.
Give me the lay of the land, so to speak.
Well, condos are super popular, especially in those like really touristy areas. They're often easier to manage, often come with amenities like pools, security, stuff like that. Then you've got villas, which obviously offer more privacy and control over the property itself. But they can be, how do I put this, a little trickier legally, especially for foreigners.
So, condo for the lock and leave lifestyle, villa if you want to be more hands on. Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. What are the pros and cons of actually owning the building versus just having that long-term lease?
Right, good question. With full ownership, obviously you've got more flexibility. You can renovate, resell if you want, even pass it down, as inheritance. But with a lease, you're bound by those specific terms. However, on the flip side, leases can be a lot more affordable, especially for bigger properties or ones on like really prime land.
Interesting. So it really is about figuring out what your goals are, right? Investment property,
Yeah.
retirement haven, or just a vacation getaway. Okay, so we've got the legal basics, a sense of the property types. Now let's talk location. I mean, I'm already dreaming of those beaches, but Thailand's got so much more to offer, right? Where are some of the hot spots for actually buying property?
Oh, for sure. Phuket's always a classic for a reason,
All
right?
right.
You've got Patong for that bustling nightlife, Keita, which is a little more family friendly, and then Kamala if you want something a bit more laid back.
I'm getting serious vacation vibes already.
Don't forget about other gems like Koh Samui, which is like super lush and tranquil, or Chiang Mai, a total cultural hub with a more, chilled out vibe.
So many choices. Bustling beaches, peaceful islands, cultural cities. It's like choose your own adventure when it comes to location. Okay, but before I get too carried away, we need to talk about the less glamorous part.
Yeah.
The budget. What kind of costs are we actually talking about here? How much is that beach view going to set me back? Be honest.
All right, let's get real. The purchase price is just one piece of the puzzle, right? You've got taxes, usually around 1-3% of the property value, which can add up. And then legal fees, remember that lawyer we talked about? Yeah, that can range from like $1,000 to $3,000, depending on the complexity.
Okay, so it's not just as simple as looking at the listing price. There are these extra costs lurking in the shadows.
Definitely. And then there are the ongoing costs too. Maintenance, utilities, and maybe even a property manager if you're thinking of renting the place out.
So it's not a one and done expense. You've got to factor in those long-term costs as well. Makes
Sure.
sense. And this is where, again, having those experts on your side really pays off, right?
Totally. It's all about avoiding those like nasty financial surprises down the road. For example, some areas might have higher maintenance fees because of shared amenities, or like infrastructure costs. A good lawyer can help you understand all that before you commit to anything.
Got it. So we've got the legal stuff, a sense of the property types, and we're starting to crunch those numbers. But let's be real, navigating a foreign property market can be pretty daunting. Is this where a real estate agent enters the picture? Are they essential in Thailand, or can you go it alone?
That's where it gets interesting. Agents can be, like, incredibly helpful. They know the market inside and out. They have access to properties you might not find on your own, and they can handle all those tricky negotiations. But
Oh, there's a but coming.
there is. The industry in Thailand, it's not as heavily regulated as in some other places, so finding a trustworthy agent is, like, absolutely crucial. Some buyers even choose to work with multiple agents just to, see what different options are out there.
So it's like, what's the saying? Like, you need to find an agent who gets you and has your best interests at heart. Kind of like dating.
Exactly.
What are some red flags to watch out for when you're, like, agent shopping in Thailand?
Well, watch out for anyone who's putting a lot of pressure on you, rushing you through the process, or if they're not super transparent about their fees. A good agent will take the time to educate you, not just try to, make a quick sale.
Got it.
Yeah,
So due diligence applies to picking an agent just as much as it does to the property itself.
100%. Which brings us to, well, due diligence on the property itself. This is your protection against any nasty surprises down the road.
Okay, time to put on our detective hats. What are the essentials of due diligence when you're buying property in Thailand?
All right, so first up, the title search. This is all about verifying the seller actually owns the property and checking for any legal claims on it. You don't want to buy a beautiful villa only to find out, like, someone else has a claim to it.
Yeah.
Talk about a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a scenario I'd like to avoid.
Then you've got the property inspection. Don't just rely on those glossy photos, right? Get a qualified inspector in there to check for any structural issues, building permits, all that good stuff.
So really kicking the tires, so to speak.
Exactly. And finally, got to verify all the legal documents,
Yeah.
the sale and purchase agreement, building permits, everything. Dot those I's, cross those T's. This is where your lawyer really earns their keep.
Sounds thorough. So it's all about digging deep, uncovering any hidden problems, and making sure everything's legit.
Exactly. Peace of mind is priceless, right?
Absolutely. But let's be honest, all this due diligence, lawyers, agents, it sounds expensive. How do foreigners typically finance a property purchase in Thailand? Is getting a mortgage even possible?
Yeah, it is. But it can be, well, a little more complicated than back home. Maybe we should dive into those financing options in part 2 of our deep dive. What do you think?
Definitely. We've covered a ton of ground already, but there's still so much to explore. Financing, currency exchange, the actual buying process. We're just getting started. So join us for part 2, where we'll tackle all those financial hurdles and get you one step closer to owning your own slice of paradise. See you there. Welcome back.
All right, so last time we kind of laid the groundwork, right? We talked about the legal ins and outs of buying property in Thailand, the different kinds of properties, and even started to look at those costs.
Yeah, we dipped our toes into the money side of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's be real. For most of us, financing is that big hurdle. Like, how do you actually make this Thai dream a reality, without going broke in the process?
Right, the million-dollar question. And this is where things can get, well, a little tricky for us foreigners. I mean, local Thai banks, they do offer mortgages.
Okay, good. So that's an option.
It is, but their requirements can be pretty strict, like much tougher than what you might be used to back home.
Okay, so spill the beans. What kind of hoops are we talking about here? We'll think big down payments, often 30% or even more, and they'll really dig into your credit history, want proof of stable income, and sometimes they even want to see that you've got a work history in Thailand.
So not exactly a walk in the park then?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Especially if you're just looking to, make a quick investment. It might not be the easiest route.
Got it. So what are the alternatives? What if those local bank doors are, like, slammed shut?
Well, there are a couple of other paths you can explore. International banks, they sometimes have more, lenient requirements for foreigners,
Yeah.
especially if you've already got a relationship with them in your home country.
Ah, so if you've already got those global banking connections, that could be a good way to go.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Worth checking out. And then, of course, there are those developer financing schemes we touched on earlier.
Right, those are a thing, right?
They are. Especially for newer developments, some developers offer like in-house financing plans that can really streamline the whole process. And they often have more flexible, eligibility criteria. But as always, read that fine print.
Okay, so it's like a trade-off then. Local banks, maybe they've got lower interest rates, but it's harder to qualify. International banks, maybe easier to get, but with higher rates. And developer financing, well, maybe that comes with like certain restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so important to compare all those different options. Don't just settle for the first thing that comes along. Shop around,
Yeah.
weigh the interest rates, the loan terms, all of it.
Yeah, treat it like any other big purchase. Do your homework right.
Right.
Now, we talked before about those hidden costs, uh, those things that go beyond just the purchase price. It seems like currency exchange, that could be a big factor here too.
Oh, huge. I mean, you're dealing with two currencies here, your home currency and the Thai baht.
Hmm.
And those exchange rates, they can fluctuate like crazy.
Okay, yeah, that's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, how do you even begin to manage that? Like, what can you do to make sure you're not suddenly, you know, way over budget?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed. Keep an eye on those exchange rates. There are tons of websites and apps that can help you track the trends.
So a little bit of currency watching can go a long way.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right? And when it comes to actually exchanging your money, choose a reputable service. Don't just go with like the first booth you see at the airport. Do your research, compare rates and fees.
So shop around, even for currency exchange.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're dealing with a really large sum, you might even want to look into something called a forward contract. It basically lets you lock in a specific exchange rate in advance.
Interesting. So you can kind of hedge your bets against those big fluctuations.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our financing figured out. We're on top of the currency game. Are we ready to jump in and start making offers now? Is that how it works?
Hold your horses.
Ye-
Not quite that fast.
All right, what's next?
It's time to, make things official. But we still want to be cautious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is to submit a formal offer to the seller. And this is where having your lawyer or your agent or both really comes in handy. They can help you, structure the offer, negotiate the terms, and just make sure everything's above board, legally speaking.
So there's more to it than just saying, yeah, I'll take it. It's a back and forth kind of thing.
It is, yeah.
Mm.
It's a negotiation. You want to make sure you end up with an agreement that you feel good about. Your lawyer will be able to, guide you through all the ins and outs of Thai property law and make sure your interests are protected.
Okay, so having those safeguards in place is important. So let's say the offer is accepted. Then what? Champagne?
Not quite yet.
Yeah.
Hold on to that champagne just a little bit longer. The next step is signing the contract, and that's where things get, legally binding. This document, it spells out all the details of the price, the payment schedule, any contingencies we talked about, everything. And this is where having a lawyer go over every single word is, like, essential. Don't skip this step.
Got it. Dotting those I's and crossing those T's.
Exactly.
Are there any, like, red flags to watch out for in these contracts? Things that buyers should be extra careful about?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Your lawyer will be able to point these out, but for example, you want to make sure the contract clearly states the type of ownership, freehold or leasehold. And if it's a lease, what are those terms for renewal? Are they clear? You also want to check for any restrictions on how you can actually use the property, like if there are limits on renovations or renting it out.
So it's all about transparency, right? Making sure there are no nasty surprises hidden in all that legal jargon.
Exactly. You want to know exactly what you're getting into.
Okay, so contract signed, everything's crystal clear. Are we there yet? Can I start picturing myself on that beach now?
Almost. But there's one crucial step left before you can officially say, I own property in Thailand. And that's the final transfer of ownership.
Yeah.
We'll dive into that process and all those essential post-purchase things to keep in mind in part 3 of our deep dive. So stay tuned.
Okay, so we've tackled all the legal stuff, right? We've crunched the numbers. We've even navigated that whole financing maze. I feel like we're in the home stretch now.
We're getting there.
But before we actually, pop the champagne and celebrate, what are those final steps? Like, how do you actually become a property owner in Thailand officially?
Right, the moment of truth. Well, it all boils down to the official transfer of ownership, and that happens at the land department. You'll need to have your passport, obviously the signed sale and purchase agreement, and probably some other documents too. Kind of depends on the specific property and, the situation.
Okay, so one last hurdle, a bit more paperwork. But then those keys are finally in hand. It doesn't just stop there, though, right? I mean, what about all the ongoing responsibilities of actually owning property in Thailand?
Yeah, good point. It's not just a one-time thing, for sure.
So what do people need to know about that?
Well, first things first, you got to make sure that property is registered in your name at the land department. This protects your ownership rights, and it also makes things a lot smoother if you ever decide to sell down the line.
Makes sense. Protect yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, well, there's the not so fun part, taxes.
Ugh, yeah. Those pesky taxes. Always got to pay them. What kind of taxes are we talking about here, specifically for property owners in Thailand?
Well, you've got property taxes, you've got land taxes, and if you decide to rent out your place, you might even have taxes on that rental income. The details, they kind of vary depending on the type of property and where it's located, so it's best to, talk to a tax advisor, get some expert advice on that.
Okay, so definitely get some professional help on that front. Can't hurt. But what about the more practical stuff, maintaining the property, dealing with utilities, all that? Is that manageable if you're, say, not living in Thailand full time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You'll need to think about regular maintenance, any repairs that come up, maybe even gardening or landscaping, depending on the property. If you're not there year-round, hiring a property management company, that could be a really good idea. They can handle everything from routine stuff to, even dealing with tenants if you're renting the place out.
So it's kind of like owning any property, really. There's that ongoing commitment, but having the right help can make it a lot easier, especially from afar.
For sure.
I think it's interesting. We've talked about so much practical stuff in this deep dive, but buying property in Thailand, it's about more than just, bricks and mortar, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's about the lifestyle, the culture, that whole dream of escaping to paradise.
Totally. It's about finding a place that, it speaks to you on a deeper level. Maybe it's waking up to the sounds of the ocean or exploring those incredible temples or immersing yourself in those vibrant markets. There's just something special about Thailand.
Yeah, it's a unique place.
So it's not just about finding the right property, it's about finding the right fit for your life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. Any final words of wisdom for those who are, feeling inspired and ready to embark on this Thai property adventure?
I'd say do your research. Be prepared for a process that might be a little different from what you're used to back home. And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Get that expert advice, find a trustworthy agent, and don't forget to bring your sense of adventure.
Well said. I think we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive, from legalities to financing to, even those emotional aspects of what it means to own a piece of paradise. So hopefully you're feeling well informed, inspired, and maybe even a little bit closer to making that Thai dream a reality. Who knows? Maybe we'll bump into each other on a beach in Phuket someday.
Maybe we will. Happy house hunting.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.